Mike, you're through to Stuart Rose. Go ahead.
Morning, Stuart. Yeah, Brexit-related on this one. First of February, some new regulations came in. There's another tranche coming in April and the worst tranche in October, where they're talking about separating agri-food products and mixed loads can't come in, physical checks. How much is this going to add to our prices in the shops?
Well, it's not going to let the prices go down, Mike, that's for certain. I mean, it is an unnecessary extra burden, and beware what you wish for. We voted for it 8 years ago, remind yourself. And these are some of the things that we are now, having to deal with on the other side. I spoke to a lady last night who tells me she lives on the Kent coast, not far from Dover, and she tells me they're preparing special extra car parks because not only have we got the problem with the importation of goods, but when you want to leave the country now and go to the other side, you've got to put your documentation in and have your fingerprints taken and all the other malarkey that goes with that. Well, it's nonsense in the 21st century.
Brexit has cost the UK £140 billion so far, according to new analysis. This was published last month, and it could be £312 billion worse off in the next 10 years. Your take on those figures?
Well, I don't want to say I told you so. I was a very minor voice in a very difficult campaign when, frankly, we were lied to. Where is the £300 million for the National Health Service? Where is the membership of Turkey to the EU, which was going to flood the EU with immigrants? Now, we've got an immigration problem which is caused by different things. But the short answer is we were lied to, we were gullible, we voted for it, and we now have to pay the consequence.
On this subject, Erin says, how could the campaign have been managed differently?
Well, I think there was a bit of complacency, number one. I think that, there was a sort of people really aren't going to vote to leave, are they? So I think there was that one. I think the second thing is the obvious one is, why in such an important election did we just have a 50% threshold for going out? I chair a couple of companies, and if we've got major issues that come to the board, they have to have a 75% majority before they get passed. And it just seems a bit strange, but we did.
Lastly, is there a new dynamic that could be brought with our relationship with Europe by a new PM, Stuart? I refer to Keir Starmer, if he gets over the line.
Well, I wanted to say a word about Rishi Sunak. I think it's quite obvious that in Rishi's tenure, and I think he's been in now just over a year or so, that there has been a real effort made for us to engage now with our European partners with whom we did not engage under the previous two prime ministers. So that's good. And I think there is a proper dialogue going on because many of the problems that we face, Nick, that, are not solved nationally. They have to be solved internationally. But yes, Keir Starmer, I'm sure he will have that same attitude. We've got to get out there. We live in a global world. People don't like to live in a global world. We can't retrench back into Little Britain. Little Britain will go nowhere. Global world is where we are, and you have to talk to your global partners. You
referenced how we're going to have major car parks in the Kent area. Let's take you to the supermarket aisles. What will the impact be on prices for this?
Well, listen, we're in a very difficult place, and there's a debate going on at the moment about what's going to happen with interest rates. I have said myself that we mustn't rush to reduce interest rates. I am not convinced that inflation is being cured yet. Inflation, remember, is not a national problem, it's an international problem, although some of our own problems are not helping it. And remember, at 4.1%, which it was last time, it is still twice the government's target, or the Bank of England's target. So that what people, I think, want is they want stability of prices after a horrendous 2 years. So let's get that out of the way. Let's not give people back too much money and then pour paraffin on the fire. But at the moment, prices have slowed down. Some of the costs of things like wheat and vegetable oil and whatever. But as Mike said when he was on just now, there are other costs coming in. And of course, we've got the terrible situation now that we've got these Houthis firing missiles in the Red Sea. Ships are having to go 6,000 miles extra around the South Africa, and that's adding cost. And you just can't vanish that cost away.
So lastly on that, just to pick up, you're not sold on the idea that inflation has been cured, for want of a
Not yet, no. I'd like to be convinced. What's
your time frame, Stuart?
I think it'll be... Well, I think as we get to the end of the year, it will come down mathematically, but I'd just like to see several months of continuing reduction. And it might go down. It came down rather unexpectedly after Christmas, and then it went back up again. Yeah. And I think we'll see a bit of bing, bang, bosh up and down, and we have to be very careful that it doesn't go up again, because just remember, it was a year or so ago, and it was running at double digits.
Lindsay's in Hornsey. Lindsay, your question to Stuart Rose. Good morning.